Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop with Galen Mooney, technology behind the scenes, website platforms, and tools you need to grow your business. We're so lucky to have Galen lead us today. Galen is an educator and SEO strategist, helping creative business and owners, that's you, attract their ideal clients and get found online. Galen got her start as a self-taught web designer and photographer who fell in love with simplifying the technical side of SEO. Sign me up for simplifying technology. Thank you, Galen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to dive into today's presentation, and I'll stay on at the end too to do a Q&A. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat and I can answer them at the end, or if we have a good stopping point as we go through, we can answer them then as well. Let me share my screen here so we can kick things off. Great. So thank you so much for the introduction. My name's Galen Mooney. I'm the founder of Local Creative Co. And I do all things web design and branding, as well as SEO, as you mentioned, which I integrate into everything that I do. And I'm also really passionate about systemizing your marketing strategies, your business strategies in general, basically finding ways to take things that you're doing every day, take the overwhelming parts of your business and find ways to simplify them. And a big part of that is using tools to help you start that process. So here's a quick agenda for today. We did our brief introduction. I'm going to dive into talking about systems and SOPs and what that looks like. And then we're going to look into all these different categories of tools for your business. There's going to be a lot of information here, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed at all. So feel free to take notes. I can even send you this presentation after the fact if you'd like a copy of it. But my whole goal here is just to expose you to a lot of different ways to run your business and a lot of different tools to incorporate into your business. And you're not meant to incorporate all of them. Some might not even apply to you, and that's okay. But just take one or two things from this presentation that you feel like you can implement this week or this month in your business, because I'm all about taking action, not overwhelming you, but finding small ways that you can take action to see results in your business. So when you're looking to add a tool to your business or make a change to your business, I want you to ask yourself, what is slowing you down? And would a tool, or would adding a tool to your business actually save you time and or money? Because this is a really important question to ask for any small business owner. There are some free tools out there, but a lot of them cost money, and it can be really easy to want to add a new tool into your business because it's that shiny object syndrome, right? Where you find this cool tool that has all these features you're really excited about. But unless it's saving you time or money, which are our most valuable resources as a business owner, you probably want to skip it. Another question to ask yourself is, should you outsource instead? So while some of these tools are great, you may want to think about ways to actually outsource that particular task or project altogether instead of using a tool to kind of fill that gap. Is the benefit worth the cost? So again, going back to the actual value you're getting from the tool, look at the benefits, not just the features. What are you going to get out of it? And is it worth the cost of the tool? And some of them are free. So I'm really excited to share with you those as well, because those are right on budget for a lot of small business owners. And also looking at what are the key features that you need as a business owner, not just what features does a particular software or tool offer, but what do you really need for your unique business, and how is that tool going to fit for you? So when I'm talking about systems, processes, or SOPs, what I'm really talking about is a standard operating procedure. So a specific step-by-step list of steps that you have for anything that you're doing in your business, really any repeatable process you're doing in your business. And I'll talk about a few examples here in just a minute. But what this does is it really lets your brain kind of go into autopilot when you're doing the same things over and over, because you have that list of steps to refer back to. So you don't end up missing anything. You're able to create this really consistent strategy for your business, whether it's in marketing or how you deal with clients, all of these things. If you're doing something more than once, you really want to have a repeatable process that you can follow over and over again. And you want to start by focusing on the end result. So if you are a client-facing business and your goal is to really make sure that your clients have a wonderful experience working with your business, work backwards from there and find ways that you can build in opportunities to delight your clients throughout their experience working with you, and then turn that into a process so you can have a repeatable step-by-step system to follow each and every time you work with a client. And you can automate a lot of this too to save yourself time. A lot of times when we're thinking about systems and processes, we can think about it: when X happens, do Y. So when I'll use the example of a Pilates instructor, when somebody signs up for a class on your website, what happens next? Did they receive a confirmation email? Maybe there's something you could add to that email to provide them even more value, whether it's sending them a recent blog post you wrote, or sending them to a resource, or maybe a quick get started guide of if it's your first time doing Pilates, here's what to expect. Just looking at different ways you can take existing connection points with your clients or with your customers, and ways that you can enhance that through automation or through using different tools. And then always looking at how could tools potentially fit into this. They don't necessarily have to fit into this. A process could be something as simple as a Google Doc or a Word doc where you've written down step by step what you do with each and every new client. But it could also be as complex as setting up an email automation in your email marketing software to create ways, again, to delight your clients, to just make their experience extra special, and to set yourself apart as a business owner. Before we think about tools, though, we always want to come back to what is the process, what is the system that we're fitting these tools into, so that we don't just end up purchasing or signing up for a particular software or app because it sounds really cool, but we don't really know where it fits into our overall marketing strategy. So some examples of processes that we could look at is like replying to frequently asked questions. So a lot of us, if we work with anybody, any clients, any customers, we're getting questions again and again, the same type of questions over and over again. And anytime you're replying to an email and you feel like you have deja vu, you've answered this question before, that's a wonderful opportunity to document your response to that question. Either drop it into your client management tool if you have one, or even just drop it into a Word doc. So when that question comes up again, you have a template ready to go to respond to that particular question. It's just going to save you a lot of time. And again, let your brain kind of go on autopilot when you're responding. And also, if in the future you decide to hire someone to handle your email inbox or hire somebody to handle customer support, you have a resource to give that person that gives them information about how you've answered these types of questions in the past. Another example is that client onboarding process that kind of goes back to the Pilates example earlier, following up with a new customer or client when they sign up for a class with you. What does the next steps look like for that person who is beginning to work with you? How can you make the experience of them signing on to work with you even better and take it to the next level? This is a wonderful way to differentiate yourself from the competition and to get people coming back again and again. This can be on the front end, right? Onboarding. This can also be offboarding a particular client, right? On the other side of this, after the class, maybe you follow up in a day or two over email and ask for a Google review, or ask for them to just let you know some feedback about their experience, so that you can make the work that you do even more valuable for your clients and customers. Another example of this is creating content for social media. This, I think, is something that stresses out a lot of business owners because we tend to have a more kind of scattered strategy when it comes to social media. We're kind of posting whenever we have time. Maybe you take a couple weeks off and then you're really on it for a week and you're posting regularly. This happens a lot, right? Because we're wearing a lot of hats in our business. We are doing the marketing, we are potentially doing the bookkeeping, we're potentially doing all of the sales, all these different elements of our business that takes time. And sometimes the marketing piece kind of falls through the cracks. So what I recommend doing for something like social media is, in order to stay consistent, is to batch create content. So create a system or a process where instead of creating content whenever you have time,
Galen?
Yep. Okay, cool. So creating content on social media, I try to set aside maybe an hour or two every month where you can sit down and really focus on one task at a time instead of just trying to do it when you have spare 5 minutes here or there, because you're never going to really create that consistent strategy. So this is an example of a way you can build a system or a process into your marketing. And it's just as simple as setting aside time to create that content in advance. So then it's all scheduled out. And we'll talk about the tools you can use to schedule your content out in advance. And a lot of these are free. You always want to remember, though, that again, the tool is not the process. The tool, while tools are great and they can really help our business grow, they are not the process. You want to have these good systems and processes as a foundation before you look at adding different tools into your business. First, let's talk about website platforms or a CMS, which is a content management system. And this is just a fancy way of saying a tool that allows you to host your website content, edit it easily, and share it online, right? So content management systems look like something like Squarespace or WordPress or Wix or Shopify. These are just a few examples of content management systems out there. And the main thing you want to look at when you're choosing a content management system or a website platform that's going to work for your business is the functionality. So it's not just what is the best website platform out there, it's what's going to be the best one for your business. And you want to look at budget, you want to look at whether you need an online shop, whether you need e-commerce functionality, whether you would like to have a blog. All of these things make a difference as to which platform you want to choose. There's no right tool or platform for every single business. Another thing is you want to make sure that the platform you're choosing is going to be SEO friendly. So you want to make sure that you just have the best foundation for that. And that could be a whole other presentation because there's a lot that goes into SEO, but most of these platforms are set up to give you the ability to add a base level of SEO and content to your site to be able to rank well in search engines. I personally prefer Squarespace, and I recommend Squarespace for most small business owners, and I'll go over why in just a second. But a few of the other ones that a lot of business owners tend to go with are something like WordPress. Wix is really common for small business owners who are just getting started. It's a great beginner option. And then Shopify is definitely my top pick for more advanced e-commerce shops. So Shopify, if you are going to be having a larger scale e-commerce shop, Shopify is the way to go there. WordPress is a wonderful option as well. I think the tricky thing about WordPress for small business owners on a budget is that it might seem like the cheaper option up front because out of the box, WordPress hosting is cheaper than a lot of the other options out there, but it can be really tricky to manage if you do not have a technical background. And you'll probably end up wanting to hire somebody at some point on a regular basis to help you manage your WordPress site because there's updates that need to happen and things that can break behind the scenes if you're not paying attention to those updates. So while I do love WordPress, I think it's better for somebody who has a budget for some kind of management of their WordPress site or for somebody who's a little bit more tech savvy. I'll share a little bit about Squarespace because it's, again, my favorite platform for small business owners and one I recommend the most. And that's because Squarespace is an all-in-one platform. Hosting everything is all done through Squarespace and it requires very little maintenance. So if you set your site up today and didn't touch it for 2 years, your site would still be functioning and running properly. Whereas with WordPress, there's a good chance that there's a lot of updates that have happened and some of your plugins have gone out of date or stopped working. Unless you're managing it on a regular basis. So I love Squarespace for this. It also has drag and drop layouts, which I'll share in just a minute. It's got a pretty minimal learning curve because it is such a visual platform. It's really easy to get started with. So if you've never designed a website before, they have some beautiful templates that just work right out of the box and you can have a website up and running in as little as a day. It also has built-in e-commerce. So while I recommend Shopify for larger e-commerce or more advanced e-commerce shops. Squarespace has a wonderful entry-level e-commerce that really works for most businesses up until a point where they have a ton of products or a ton of variants. So it's nice that Squarespace has the option to add in e-commerce. It's also very customizable. So while I said anybody can get started with Squarespace, if you wanted to hire a Squarespace designer, you can get something that looks and feels extremely unique and looks nothing like the out-of-the-box templates. So you can start really basic in Squarespace, but there's a lot of customization that can happen later if you choose to go that route. They also have chat support. So I love that anytime you're having a problem with Squarespace, you can just reach out to their chat support and talk with somebody who works at Squarespace to help point you in the right directions. This is just a really great option. This is just a quick example of what their content blocks options are. So like when you're adding content to a page, there's so many different options for adding pre-built website elements to your site without having to know how to code or how to add those elements. So for example, you might want to add photos or a video or a contact form or even a button to link out to maybe another third-party site that you're using for like class registration, for example. So there's a lot of different options here, and it's all really drag and drop. It's on this flexible grid system, so you can really just drag things around and place them where you'd like, and what you see is what you get. So what you see on the back end of Squarespace is what's going to show up when somebody visits your website. And the same isn't always true. For example, other platforms like WordPress, sometimes the back end looks different from what you actually see on the front end. Here's just another quick example of how easy it is to add something like a button to your website. You're just clicking and choosing the button content block, and there you go. You've got a button added to your site. Really simple, and I just wanted to kind of illustrate how easy it can be to get started with a website, even if you've never built one before or you have no idea what you're doing when it comes to this. And it is a pretty affordable option too. So I highly recommend Squarespace if you're just getting started and you need a site to work out of the box. You can always hire someone to make it more custom later, but at least you'll have something live. At least you'll have a presence online that you can send people to, that you can start attracting people through Google, through search engine optimization. It's really great to have your website be your home on the internet. Now let's dive into social media tools. As I mentioned, I like to sit down once a month and create all my content for the upcoming month and then schedule it out ahead of time. And I use a number of different tools to make all of this happen. When you're looking at different tools, and you might want to use a few different ones, kind of depending on what you're looking to do, but I look for tools that I can use to design social media elements, right? It's one thing to just have images on your social media feed, but you might want to take that a step further and add in your brand colors or add some custom branded elements to your social media feed. So I use a tool called Canva, Canva. It's a free design tool that allows you to add your branded graphics, add your logo, add your colors, add your fonts, and kind of customize your social media graphics. That way your feed can be a mix of text graphics, images, all sorts of things to really create that dynamic look and feel. Canva has a free version and a paid version, but I highly recommend getting started with their free version. It's really, really simple. I'm also looking for ways to schedule content. Canva actually recently added in a way to schedule content directly from Canva, which is pretty cool. But I personally use a tool called Planoly. Planoly is also a free tool that allows you to schedule out Instagram and Facebook posts in advance. And then there are other tools that you can use for engaging and keeping track of comments, and then measuring, like tools that allow you to measure your analytics too. So like, for example, Planoly, I'm actually on the paid plan for Planoly right now, but they also have a great free plan. But the paid plan has some more advanced analytics. So I can kind of see how my posts are doing in terms of engagements. I can see comments that are coming in, all sorts of things. But as always, try to start on the free plan if you can, to evaluate these tools and then decide if at some point later on you want to upgrade. Another option, if you're looking for something like, if you're looking for Pinterest management, is Tailwind. Tailwind is a wonderful tool for scheduling Pinterest pins. And then another interesting tool is called Meet Edgar. And this is a great tool if you have a lot of blog content that you've written already, or a lot of content on your site. And it goes through and it basically creates a queue so that it automatically reshares old content that's still relevant. So that's a really neat tool that kind of pulls that your history, your backlog of content, and then republishes it again to give it a second wind of engagement. So there's a bunch of different tools you can use for social media management. But again, some of the things to look for is a tool that lets you design, tools that let you schedule, possibly engaging with people on these different platforms. I personally do a lot of engagement through the platform itself, but there are tools out there that help with engagement. For example, Sprout Social, I believe, has a social inbox that lets you see the comments, see the engagement that's coming in across different social channels, and you can typically respond right from inside that tool.
Galen, I just wanted to jump in
yeah,
with a quick question.
sure.
Steve said that they've used Later for social media posting, but are finding that they get better results with creating the content organically within the respective apps. Is this something you found with the scheduling tools?
Yeah, I would say it's really kind of dependent over time. So there are some tools that are affiliated directly with the social channels. So Planoly and I believe Later are directly connected to Instagram. I have seen in some cases that engagement's better when you post directly to the app. I just know that for me personally, it's not always feasible to do that when I'm trying to run a business as well. So sometimes I'll try to post directly to the platform. Other times, most of the time, I will use one of the scheduling tools. I find that the biggest thing is paying attention to the time of day when your audience is most likely to be online. So really looking at, I mean, you can actually see that in the Instagram analytics, right from your business account inside of Instagram. You can see when people are most likely to be online. You can look at the history of the posts that you've published and see which ones of those have the most engagement. Every month, I tend to look back at the previous month and try to see, okay, which of my posts have the most likes, comments, and shares? Shares probably being, or saves, excuse me, saves probably being one of the biggest or newest important factors to the Instagram algorithm as to how relevant or how important a particular post is. So it's important to look at those saves, but saves, likes, comments, shares, all of those things. And just seeing, okay, what about a particular post that I shared in the past really caused that post to take off? Was it something possibly about the caption, about the graphic, about the image? Was it the time of day? And you might start to notice trends in the content that you've shared in the past that will help you make decisions about the type of content that you want to create and share in the future. So I haven't seen too much of a difference between posting to the platform versus posting with a third party. Some people will say it makes some difference, but for me, I think the benefits far outweigh the cons of being able to schedule content in advance. But I highly recommend making sure that you're on the platform to respond to comments in a pretty quick manner. So like if you publish something and you notice that comments are coming in, make sure you're there to engage in those comments and respond to every single one, especially in the first 24 hours after sharing your post. That will help it get a lot more reach.
Thank you. And then Megan asked, I heard Instagram and Facebook are going to be relying heavily on SEO to show posts, meaning they are looking for quantity of content versus quality. Can you talk to that?
For social media, I have found it's mostly about engagement. So the biggest thing that they care about is engagement on your post. And that used to be really heavily leaning towards the like button, like how many likes your post got. But Instagram's getting away from that. You can actually see they've started to offer the option to hide likes on your post and to hide likes that you're seeing on other people's content, which is really interesting because they don't want people really comparing the quality of a post based on the likes. It's much more based on the engagement that that post is getting. So comments are huge, getting comments on your post. That's why it's super, super important to respond. I would still say quality is better than quantity. At least that's what I've been seeing. Quality is going to be better because if you post, I would say if you post 2 to 3 times a week, but you're getting a lot more comments and engagement, that's going to be more helpful than trying to post every day, but feeling like your content isn't high enough quality and you're just not getting that engagement. If you can post every day and maintain the engagement, that's wonderful. That means you're able to churn out some really good content. But in general, I would say engagement is always going to come first for the algorithm. They want people using the app. They want people connecting on the app. And in order to do that, they need people to be immersed in the content and really having those conversations. So that's going to be the biggest thing. So still try to put out a good amount of content if you can by scheduling it in advance, or at least planning it out in advance, and then focusing on community building. There was a great Instagram strategy that came out a while ago. And I'm trying to think, maybe it was Gary Vaynerchuk who came out with this. And I forget what it's called right off the top of my mind, but it was basically saying that to increase the engagement on your own posts, you want to be putting out, I forget what the percentage was, but basically you want to be putting out a lot more or giving out a lot more engagement than you're receiving. So if you're sitting there saying, oh, I'm not really getting that many comments on my posts, people aren't really responding, that probably means that you're not doing enough engagement on other people's accounts, and Instagram will reward that. And people will want to connect with you more if you're being more productive, or if you're being more forward and out, like reaching out to other people basically on the platform. So if you're not getting the connection that you want, start trying to build that connection with other people on the platform, and you will see that reciprocated.
Yes, it's a community. And another follow-up question from Steve. Can you touch on the value of post impressions? Not as good as engagement, but what can we ascertain from the number of impressions per post?
That's a great question too. So that is also going to be tied hand in hand with engagement. So you'll notice that posts that tend to get a lot of engagement within that first hour or two of being published, posts that get comments, they get likes, they get saves, those are going to end up reaching more people. So the more engagement you can get on a post right after it's been published, the more likely that post is to be shown to more people. If a post right out of the gate just doesn't really get any engagement, no one really likes it, Facebook or Instagram is going to stop showing that post to more people, and it's really going to hurt your impressions. So the two are heavily tied together. More impression or more engagement leads to more impressions, and Facebook and Instagram just really want to see, like you mentioned, that community vibe, the importance of reaching out and having those connections. So does that make sense? I would say the two are still heavily tied. The more engagement is going to lead to more impressions, and you want to get that engagement right after a particular post is published. Perfect. So these are just some examples of tools here. Take them or leave them, kind of depending on the platforms. I also recommend for small businesses that you do not try to be on every single platform. If you're just getting started with social media marketing, don't say, I'm going to be on Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram and Clubhouse, which is a new social media tool, or a new social media platform. Don't try to be on all the platforms. Start with one platform where you feel like your ideal clients are actually spending time. Start there, focus there, do that one platform really well, and then find ways that you can add in another platform only once you feel really confident on one that you've already kind of dominated, that you already feel like you have that strategy down pat. So start with one, you can always expand from there. So maybe pick one tool to go along with that platform. And then I would always say Canva is just a great tool to use for your brand in general, not just for social media, but that's something that fits really nicely into that. Then let's move on to email marketing tools. This is one I'm also very passionate about. Email marketing is a wonderful way to warm up your customers and to build a relationship. So this is the act of sending newsletters. You can send automated emails based on, like you said, we talked about earlier, when you have a new client or customer, that follow-up sequence that comes after they sign on with you. You can segment and personalize your email list. So if you have a few different services that you offer and somebody signs up for one type of service, you can then send them emails about that one type of service instead of just sending everybody on your email list the exact same emails. So you can send newsletters, you can segment your audience so that you can really personalize the experience for your clients and customers. You can automate those email sequences with something like workflows, where basically if somebody takes this action, then send them this email. And then it's really important to have analytics too, so that you're able to measure how people are interacting with your email list. In general, a good open rate for an email is around 20%. And what an open rate means is if I sent an email to 100 people, about 20 of those people should typically open that email. That's what's to be expected. If you have a smaller email list, I would say 100 people is kind of on the smaller end. You might see closer to a 40 or 50% open rate. If you have a 5,000 person email list, you might see closer to a 10 to 15% open rate. But we're always trying to shoot for that 20%. That's typically ideal. And there's a lot of different tools you can use to create and send branded emails. If you're sending out bulk emails to a large group of people, you really want to be using an email tool, because there's a lot of different legal requirements around sending bulk emails. People need the option to unsubscribe. So if you're somebody who's just dragging your entire email list into the BCC line of an email and sending out news blasts, I highly recommend you switch over to a dedicated email marketing tool. My favorite email marketing tool is Flowdesk. It's a wonderful new startup. It's a woman-run startup, and they have beautiful email templates, and they make it really easy to create workflows, automated email sequences, to segment your audience. And again, their templates are really beautiful and well designed and very customizable. So Flowdesk is a great option. I also have used ConvertKit. That's great for a little bit more advanced email marketing. MailChimp is an option a lot of people start with. Klaviyo is one that is specific for e-commerce, and that integrates really well into Shopify. So I recommend Klaviyo for those of you e-commerce users out there. And then there's a bunch of other ones, HubSpot, Constant Contact. There's a ton of tools out there. I wish I could list them all, but these are just some of the ones that I recommend. So again, Flowdesk is my top choice, and then ConvertKit, MailChimp, Klaviyo for e-commerce. Let me know if you have any questions there. Again, I'm happy to pop in and answer them now, or have a Q&A here at the end. Let's chat about CRM or client management tools. So when we're talking about a CRM, this is great for any business who is managing leads and clients. And this allows you to kind of keep track of what communication you have had with specific people who have come into your sales funnel in some capacity. So maybe somebody signed up for your email list, but they haven't actually come to one of your classes or hired you as a business yet, or hired you for a service yet. It's great to kind of know where people are and be able to track them. This can be kind of similar to email marketing, but this is more for client-based businesses. So for this, if you have a client management system, this is a client management tool, these can be great for tracking leads and finding out where they are in the sales process, sending invoices and contracts, managing tasks in your business, tasks related to a particular project. It can be great for bookkeeping. You can track your paid invoices, your unpaid invoices, and send out payment reminders. And it also sometimes has marketing tools. So for example, I use HoneyBook, and HoneyBook has the option to send out bulk emails to your customers or leads, maybe talking about a sale or something new that's coming up. So there are some built-in marketing tools for these CRMs, and then analytics as well. For me, the biggest thing is I like to avoid my email inbox as much as possible. I get a ton of emails into my inbox, and a tool like HoneyBook allows me to keep track of all of my client communication inside of HoneyBook instead of in my inbox. So that way I can see all of the new leads who have filled out the form on my website. I can see how many of them I've already responded to, how many I've sent proposals or contracts to, how many have signed those projects that I'm currently working with. And then I can even see all of the projects I've completed. And maybe I want to send out a testimonial request or a feedback request email after that. So it really just gives you a high level overview of where all of your clients are currently in the process and who you need to respond to or follow up with next. Really, really valuable tools. HoneyBook is a wonderful tool. Other options are something like Dubsado, and then Salesforce is great for a little bit more enterprise level. I would say they are great for larger businesses who are managing thousands of contacts and kind of want to just keep track of those larger scale sales processes. And then Bonsai is a great option, Hello Bonsai, and HubSpot as well. The nice thing about a tool like HubSpot is if they're an all-in-one tool, they offer a lot of different services. You saw they were on the email marketing slide before. So having something like HubSpot as that all-in-one tool can be really beneficial. It just kind of depends on the cost benefit analysis and the features that you really need. For example, I personally would rather use HoneyBook and Flowdesk than have an all-in-one tool like HubSpot, because for me, those two tools really just meet my needs and have more of the functionality and the support that I'm looking for than something like HubSpot does. But it's going to be unique for every single business. But the goal here is to simplify your client process and just have an easier time keeping track of where everybody is in the process so that tasks and emails don't get lost. Now let's look at some productivity tools. This is also probably one of my favorite topics to chat about. Productivity tools can be wonderful for keeping yourself. If you're a one-person business, a solopreneur, that's great. You can use productivity tools to keep track of all the different things you're working on and all the tasks that need to happen. It's also wonderful for growing and managing teams. So if you ever decide to outsource or bring on an intern, or maybe you already have a small team and you're looking for ways to collaborate with them and keep everything in one place, have one main source of information for everything. I personally use Notion for my productivity tool, but there's some wonderful tools out there. Notion, Asana, Trello is great for really simple productivity management. ClickUp is a great tool, Monday.com. These all have different features, and you can try all of them out for free and see which one's going to be the best fit for you. Most of these, I think, actually just have a free plan. I know Notion and Asana, and I know Trello used to, I think they still do, have a free plan, so you can actually just use the tool completely for free. And I think ClickUp might as well. Another nice thing about these productivity tools is that you can create templates. So if you are having similar types of projects that you're working on, or you have task lists that you might want to repeat again in the future, you can create templates so that you're not reinventing the process each and every time. They're great for collaboration. So if you're working on a project together, you can share task items and assign items to certain people, so you can see what is on my to-do list and what is on somebody else on my team, what's on their to-do list. And you can actually get a high-level view of what other people on your team are working on. And I love Notion because it functions a lot like an advanced version of Google Docs or Google Drive. So you can actually...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Aaron asked this question a little earlier. Do these website platforms have their own CRM and booking functions, or is it better to link to one of the platforms that you just mentioned?
That's a great question. So for example, something like Squarespace, they do have a scheduling functionality built in, but they don't have a full-on CRM built in. So they do not have a full-on client management system. So you wouldn't actually be able to manage your clients inside of something like Squarespace, although you could have like an automated scheduler in there. Squarespace does offer email marketing. They do have basic email marketing built in, and I guess I could have included that. I don't personally use it. It's pretty basic right now. It just came out in the last year, and I know they'll be adding new features to it, but as of right now, it's still kind of on the pretty like basic side of things, but I think they will add to and improve that. So it's completely up to you. I personally use HoneyBook, and then HoneyBook has a contact form built in, and I can create the form in HoneyBook and then embed it on my Squarespace website. So if somebody goes to my contact page, fills out that form, they're automatically added to HoneyBook. So it kind of depends on the platform. WordPress, for example, you could use different plugins, but it's still going to tie to a third-party software like a HoneyBook, like a Dubsado, that then inputs that person into your actual client management system. So you can integrate a lot of these tools, and we'll talk about some other integration options in just a second. But I would say none of the website platforms are going to be a standalone for all of these things. You're going to want to have some third-party connections to other tools to really get the job done. I think we're good. Okay. So for, let's look here. I was talking about Notion. Yes. For Notion's great because it's just like Google Docs. You can actually write a blog post, for example, inside of Notion. And just like in Google Docs, where you can highlight text and add comments and work with somebody else on your team on the exact same document, you can do that inside of Notion too. But then you can actually tie that particular document to a task. So once that blog post is finished, for example, you can check it off your to-do list, and it'll be marked on the that to-do list as done. So then you know that blog post is completed, but everything is in one place inside of something like Notion. So I love that the ability to manage documents there. I also love the ability to have multiple views. So I am able to look at a to-do list. I am able to turn that to-do list into a calendar to see specific deadlines associated with those tasks. I am able to group tasks by priority. I'm able to group tasks by deadline. There's so many different options, and most of these tools have that ability to organize your to-do list and to make things seamless, so you can view the data in the easiest way possible, view what needs to get done now versus what can be pushed off a little bit later, and you can get a high level view of what everyone else in your organization is working on. So integration tools, I know we just talked about integration. Most of these tools have a way to integrate already built in. So for example, Flowdesk is an email marketing tool. If you wanted to add a Flowdesk email sign-up form to your Squarespace website, you could just copy and paste the little bit of code Flowdesk gives you and put it on your Squarespace website. You don't need to know anything about the code. It's literally just copy and paste, very, very simple. So that's built in out of the box. Same thing with something like HoneyBook in Squarespace. If you wanted to replace the out of the box Squarespace contact form with your HoneyBook form, so then people automatically get added to HoneyBook once they fill out that form. Again, you just copy and paste that little bit of code, put it on your Squarespace website, and then hit save, and the form shows up automatically on Squarespace. That's the easiest way to integrate, but I thought it would still be important to mention a few other integration tools. So these can be great for connecting platforms that don't necessarily connect out of the box, and then also sending data from one platform to another. So Zapier kind of works in a fashion where actually all of these tools for the most part do. Zapier and IFTTT work in the way that like if X happens, then do Y. So you have a trigger and then you have an action that happens after that trigger. So for example, for me, I have a shopping cart integration on my website where if somebody purchases one of my courses, I then have a Zapier trigger set up to add them to the back end of my course platform. So just again, one example of if somebody checks out with this form, then add them to that platform. And tools like Zapier and IFTTT make these complex integrations between different platforms really, really simple. An easy way to use tools like this, and Zapier has a free plan. Zapier is a wonderful tool. It would be to think to do. I'm trying to think of like a great example of just like a fun, easy one is for notifications actually. So I do this all the time. Whereas if somebody fills out your contact form on your website, or even I could set it up with Honeybook, if somebody fills out my contact form, I could have my phone send me a text message to let me know so that I remember to go check that later. It's really nice just to have that one little extra reminder. I use Zapier for text alerts all the time so that if something happens in my business that I want to know about, I use Zapier to send me a text message and give me that alert so then I can take action on it. And it just brings it to my attention right away. So you probably don't need to pay too much attention to these tools, but if you have a specific use case or you have two tools that you're trying to figure out how to connect them, Zapier is a wonderful resource. And then always there's custom integrations too. So you could look at hiring a developer to build something really custom, but Zapier does most of that for you. And then IFTTT is just a probably just like a little bit of a less involved tool than Zapier. It doesn't have quite as many integrations, but it's still a good option. Now let's look at some communication tools. So this is internal communication for the most part, right? How you communicate with your team, how you communicate with your clients or customers if you're not using something like a client management system. First of all, I always recommend that you have a professional email address. And that means having an email that is your name or hello or info or support at yourbusiness.com. That is going to just set you up for success. It's going to make sure that all of your emails have this level of professionalism to them. And so I always recommend doing that. And it's really easy to do through Google Workspace, also known as G Suite. It used to be G Suite. Now it's Google Workspace. It's $6 a month right now, I believe. And they make it very, very simple to set up your own email inbox. And that comes along with all the great tools inside of Google Drive. So I do this for myself and all of my team members so that we all have professional branded email addresses. Now that I have email set up, I also try to keep my inbox as clean as possible. And for me, that means keeping as much email as possible or as much communication as possible out of my inbox and actually keep it in other tools. So that way my email ideally is mostly for me communicating with people outside of my team. And then I use other tools for communicating with people inside of my team. And that keeps my inbox so much cleaner and so much less stressful for me. So I'm always looking for email alternatives for my team. And those for me are Slack. I love Slack. And this is just a chat app that can live on your phone, on your desktop of your computer, and allows you to have work-related conversations over chat in these apps instead of clogging up your email inbox with one-line emails when you're replying to things or getting approval. Slack can be a wonderful tool for that. I also love Voxer. Voxer is a free tool as well. And Voxer is like the walkie-talkie version of Slack. So it's like the voice version of Slack where you can send messages, voice memos back and forth to your team members to check in on them, to ask what's going on. You can use it for clients. You can use it for internal team members. It's just a wonderful tool to send quick messages back and forth that are better off not being an email. Notion, like I mentioned earlier, pretty much all of those productivity tools are great for communication collaboration as well. You can keep a lot of email out of your inbox by keeping the emails inside of these client management inside of these productivity tools where you're managing your projects. The communication should be as close to the project management as possible. So Slack is great for communication. Voxer is great for communication. Google Workspace is great for setting yourself up for success when it comes to having a branded email. Spark Email is just a desktop platform that helps me manage my email. It's just like Apple Mail or Outlook or something like that. It just is a great tool to manage your email. And then something like Notion or ClickUp or Asana is going to be great for keeping that communication tied to the project instead of having it floating around in an email. So when you're finding new tools, what should you be looking for when you're evaluating tools, when you're trying to figure out what's the best tool for you? The first thing is to read reviews. So always look for reviews and see what other people are saying about the tools and their specific use cases for them. Some great options for this are Capterra. G2 is another one. Product Hunt is a great one. You can find people talking about the tools, having conversations about them. Reddit is a great option too for that, just to kind of see. Most people, if you have a question about a tool, somebody else has probably already had that question too. So it's really nice to have reviews to look at. And then you want to look at your use case, because just because a tool is great for somebody else doesn't mean it's great for you. And then you want to look at, do I even need a tool, or am I just having shiny object syndrome and trying to find something when there really isn't an issue with the way I'm doing it now? You don't want to, tools should never overcomplicate. They should always be there to simplify. So look at your individual use case and then ask yourself, do I actually need this tool, or can I solve this problem in a different way? I always want to remind you, and I mentioned this a bunch throughout this presentation, but there's no right tool for every business. The best thing you can do is, again, find the problem you're trying to solve, try out these tools. Most of them are free or have free trials. Assess the tools. Are they going to work for your needs? Do they have the features that you need to run your business in the best way possible? And then commit to it. Once you've chosen something and stuck to it and set it up for your business, put the blinders on and stop looking for other alternatives if you're happy with what you have now. It can be really easy to see something new come out and want to switch, but that's really just going to pull you away from doing what your business needs to do. So stay focused, pick a tool and just commit to it and try to get the most out of it and use the features to the best of your ability. That's it for today. I'd love to stick around and do a little bit of a Q&A. Feel free to come say hi on Instagram. I'm at localcreative.co. I'd love to stay in touch with all of you. And yes, let me pull up the chat here so I can see.
Thank you so much, Galen.
Yes, it's a lot. A lot of information.
No, this is great. I saw everyone taking notes. Aaron, you had a question. Why don't you just hop off of, unmute yourself and go ahead and jump in. And then after Aaron's done, if anyone else wants to ask a question, we have a few more minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Gian, and thank you, Galen. Great information today. A lot to follow up on and sift through, but it's all good. Super helpful. My question was just specific to branded email. So, for example, we've secured a domain name for our business, but we currently have a Gmail address. So it's the name of our business at Gmail. And to get to the place where the name of our business is after the @symbol.com, what's the next step to take or the vehicle to use?
Yeah, so you're going to want to sign up for Google Workspace or G Suite for Business. And it's a really simple process. Wherever you purchased your domain, you're just going to look up how to connect that to G Suite. And I wish I could give you more specific advice there, but it's going to be really different depending on where you purchased your domain. But signing up for a Google Workspace account, there's a ton of tutorials to help get your domain connected to that. And again, it's like $6 a month, and it's so worth it to have that branded email. And then if you ever decide to send, use an email marketing tool to send bulk emails, like a Flowdesk, like a MailChimp, something like that, you're going to want to use your branded email account because you're going to see better deliverability, basically more people receiving your emails if it's coming from your branded address versus at gmail.com. So most of those providers recommend that you have a branded address for that.
Great, thank you.
You're so welcome. Any other questions? Pop the chat too.
Yes, I actually have a question. So I basically I went through Network Solutions as opposed to like WordPress or whatever because it was cheaper to get my domain name and my, the place for my website. But the issue is I created a website on Canva and I was trying to link them, but it doesn't seem to be working out. I'm just wondering what's the best way to go, or should I just start from scratch, go with like WordPress or some other, hosting site and then just have someone build it?
Yeah, I would say Canva is probably not going to be your best bet for websites because that's not what it's originally designed for. I know they have an option to push like certain pages live, and people are starting to use that for like Instagram bio links and things like that. But in general, from an analytics perspective, as well as from an SEO perspective, you're going to be so much better off going with like a Squarespace or a WordPress, and just getting something up that way. And you can keep your domain with Network Solutions if you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. I do find that they're less expensive to start, but they tend to charge you more the longer you stay with them. So just watch that. You can always transfer your domain away if it gets more expensive later on. But I would say you could keep your domain with Network Solutions for now, just to keep it simple, but then start building a website on something like a WordPress or a Squarespace, and then link your domain from Network Solutions to one of those to get your hosting set up.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Megan.
Hi. All right. So a lot of good information that you kind of talked about for like sending out newsletters and stuff. I guess I want to start sending out newsletters. The problem that I have is I kind of have like everything all over the place. So what would be like a really good, like, do you have a good resource that you could recommend that I can kind of like read and go to and kind of streamline it? Because I have something like on my website that captures people's emails when they come visit if they want. I have like emails in my email system. I have it, you know, all over the place. And I guess I send out bulk emails for my classes. I started virtually with the pandemic, but I don't have an unsubscribe button. So after you're saying all of that, I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of need to bring it together. Like I have the resources, but I'm not sure of the right resources.
Yeah, feel free to send me a message after this too, because I can answer any questions or I can point you in the direction. But I would say in general, I think the first thing you need to do is to lay out, like even just on a piece of paper, sort of write down what you want to have happen, right? I want to send out a monthly email on the second Tuesday of every month. I want to send out these follow-up emails to every person who signs up for a class, and just make a note of that process. Map out the process, what you want it to look like, and then start looking for a tool. I think something like Flowdesk would be a really great fit for you. And then I would focus on getting everybody into Flowdesk. So if they sign up for a class and they want to receive emails from you, how do you get them into Flowdesk? If they are on your website and sign up for your form there, make sure you're using a Flowdesk form so they go into your email list there. So then everybody kind of goes into one tool. And then within that tool, you can segment them. People who have attended this class, people who have attended that class, or people who've never attended a class. And then you can send different emails based on that.
Right.
The only thing I would say you might want to still keep separate is if you have like reminder emails. So like if somebody signs up for a class, I'm not sure what platform you use for that. I know there's a ton of them. But those reminder emails that are specific to a class, if you have something like that, those could probably stay in the system where you currently have them.
Okay, yeah, there are a ton of them. I just switched because hopefully this tool will do what it needs to do.
There you go.
We have time for one more question. If anyone just wants to unmute and hop in.
I do have a question. My point of sale all-inclusive software here has open API integration, which I've always wanted to. The CRM platforms don't communicate directly with this, and I'm hoping that you have a recommendation for somebody who might be able to help out with custom API integration, something like that.
Yeah, I would say your best bet for that is to go to something. Have you heard of Upwork? Have you ever used Upwork before? It's a great tool to basically find experts, and you can search by platform name. So you can actually look for experts who have specifically worked with your CRM and your point of sale solution. So they're familiar with the code behind that. And you can even ask for examples of their work. But I have worked with a lot of great developers, and it's all sorts of business owners through that platform. And it's wonderful to outsource, especially for development work and building custom APIs and things like that. There's reviews, and Upwork actually protects you a lot during that process. So that's a wonderful place to start.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you so much, Galen. And everyone, make sure you connect with Galen on Instagram, follow her for more tips, and feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I would love to chat with all of you.